What's good, good people? Welcome back to Whole Views. Thank you for clicking that thumbnail. My name is Corey, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Ant-Man Quantummania. So I'm going to do the video a little bit different here. I'm going to go with my regrets, then I'm going to go with my likes, then I'm going to go with the things that didn't bother me. Those are the things that are actually negatives, but they just didn't bother me here. And then I'm going to wrap up with a very cool point that the movie made in a connection to God of War. So let's go ahead and get to it. Starting with my regrets, about 2 years ago, when this channel had just gotten off its feet, I was doing things and looking for different avenues to create new content, talking about particularly some of my favorite actors or some of my favorite content creators. And I thought that these people either deserved a bigger platform or they would be receiving a bigger platform or more shine from the national attention in the coming months and years. So I was thinking about different people I wanted to highlight. One of the people I wanted to highlight was Kev on Stage. Now, this was before he started his streaming service, so I would have been ahead of that if I'd have did that. I knew they had a big platform through social media. Me highlighting him would not have been a big thing, but I just thought, this guy is great. He deserves more attention. I would have been ahead of that if I would have did that video. I also wanted to do RJ Seiler. I feel like that's a guy who's on the cusp still at this point of taking the next step and becoming a real household name. I think that he's just a few rows away from becoming very, very common throughout Hollywood. But the biggest regret that I have of not doing that series of videos or writing those blogs, because that's what the idea was. Either I'm going to write about it or I'm going to do a video about it. I was going to do Jonathan Majors. At this point, this is when Lovecraft Country was coming out and I was doing the weekly videos for Lovecraft Country. I had just seen The Five Bloods that also came out, I believe, in 2020. And I think at the point of me thinking about this idea, we had just saw the first promotional images for The Harder They Fall. So I was like, man, Jonathan Majors, he's not there yet as far as being a household name, but he's going to be there. And I said, you know, he's going to be one of the ones I do a little video or write a little article highlighting and talking about. And I never did that. And that is my biggest regret, because at this moment, we've just seen Ant-Man Quantummania. We are getting ready to go see Creed 3. The man is literally everywhere. He's all over social media for this recent photo shoot that he did. There's so much to talk about him with. And he's been in so many good things recently and going to be in more in the future. And people are now starting to catch on. And I just feel like, man, I missed the opportunity to dunk on people and say, hey, I saw it first and I called it a long time ago. And I really did in my mind. I just never put that content together. So that's a regret. He was great in Ant-Man Quantummania. And when we're rolling right into the likes, he is actually the best part of the movie. There is not much outside of acting that is done well besides Jonathan Majors. Now, I'm saying that, but I also want to say that I really enjoyed Scott Lang's character too in the movie. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang is very, very consistent. That's the thing that I don't think people appreciate. You know, we saw Ant-Man in those first two films and through his Avengers appearances, and people complain a bit about the humor and the way that the characters are the same all the time. And it's like, Ant-Man is Ant-Man. Paul Rudd plays that character the same way each time. He's going to fangirl about Captain America. He's going to brag a lot about being an Avenger because he is a small-time guy and he is risen to the status of worldwide recognition. He's a person who helped save the world, and Scott never thought he would be that. And we see that theme over and over and over again in his character, and it's just consistent with who he is. I don't feel like it's something that needs to be looked at as a negative. I actually enjoy the fact that Ant-Man is a constant. He is who he is throughout all the films. Aside from Kang, I really want to say that I enjoyed the quantum realm and how they fleshed the thing out. The one thing that they didn't really explain to me is how is there so much life there when Janet first landed and Kang first landed, that there was not much else besides them. How did we get to this point? That's a huge question that I would like to know. But outside of that, I like, the Bill Murray appearance. I like those guys that kind of led the resistance. All those different characters were very cool, unique, different. The Mind Reader guy was probably the best comic relief throughout, his appearances in the film. I enjoyed all those little elements that they added into the quantum realm. The action part of Ant-Man was actually fairly impressive here. You get Kang, who is the physical presence, and he's incredibly impressive throughout his run here in this movie, even though his demise and the way he ended didn't really end in a way that some fans wanted to. I thought that he served a great role when he went hand to hand with Ant-Man. It was very intimidating, and you could tell that that Creed bodybuilding training is paying off and looking right. And Jonathan Majors just brings the intensity when he's putting them hands on that man toward the end of the movie. Cassie showing up and doing the things that she did. I like that she didn't do too much. It was kind of irritating the way her character would always have this urge to help and go against what the father wanted. But at the same time, I get it. Young people are ambitious and they want to do everything and save the world and all that stuff. And it just felt as though she was just being defiant and just continuously making bad decisions. Like, hey, let's mind our business and let's get out of here. And she didn't really want to do that. She wanted to help. But they didn't have her doing too much. And I'm satisfied with the fact that she wasn't the one to come through and save the day. It was Ant-Man being sacrificial. It was Ant-Man coming up with the plan to get everybody out and being the hero in this sense of, I'm going to hold him off while other people make their exits and stuff like that. So I was cool with it. I thought that it was, the action side of it was cool. They didn't have anybody doing anything spectacular, but then at the same time, they did move the story along and the action was fairly well done. Now, moving into the things that didn't bother me. Now, these are negatives. Don't get me wrong. There are negatives about the movie, but I don't know. Maybe it's my goodwill that I have towards Marvel. The fact that we are about, 28 movies in now. I just kind of know what to expect, and people still complain about some of the things that we've been getting. I can acknowledge that they are not the best parts of the movie, but it just didn't bother me. So I think specifically to the comedy. Some people say, oh, the comedy is forced and not all of it landed. Yes, some of it is forced and not all of it is going to land because it's Ant-Man. Ant-Man is the most comedic of all the franchises. And if you go back and watch Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man 2, you'll recall those things. Like those things happen. And that's just what it is for Scott Lang and all the characters inside his universe. They are more comedic than anything else. So I didn't break down this video into categories like sometimes I do the visuals and the rewatchability and the pace and all that. But if I'm talking visuals, I think, again, Jonathan Majors, best acting you see on the screen. Scott Lang, consistent character, Paul Rudd did a great job. No complaints from me there. But this movie takes place in the quantum realm, which means it's all green screen. Some people didn't care for the amount of green screen. Now, I'll give it a pass here on that amount of green screen and those visuals for the main fact that I've seen IMAX versions of some of the same screenshots. If you watch this thing in IMAX, it's captivating. If you watch it regular, like on a regular screen, you're going to be missing a lot of the details that they put into this. And again, I saw it on a regular screen, but I knew going in, like I saw screenshots. Yo, this shot is supposed to be way bigger. But what we get is, a little small frame and it's not as impressive. Some people find that to be a negative. I didn't find that side of the visuals to be a negative. The part of the visuals that I did find to be a negative would be Modok. Modok as a character was kind of like, that's really what it was for me. Darren Cross, the character, is brought back and it made perfect sense that he would be who he was and how he was in this role. The problem that I have with him is that, one, he is heavily used for comedic relief when you don't really need him because the movie is lighthearted enough, although serious in tone, lighthearted enough. And two, his CG was horrible. That is the biggest flaw of the film. The fact that Modok kept showing up and kept looking so weird. Now, I was not bothered by it. I was like, it's kind of hard to make a CGI floating talking head. It's difficult. But my producer in pre-production, we talked and he was like, man, this is $100 million. Like, they spent big money on this movie. This is a studio that cranks out films that make billions. They need to do better than that. And I was like, I guess, bro. I have to give it to you in that regard. You are right in that fashion. When talking about it with him, I was like, man, should I give him a pass on it? Because it just didn't bother me. He's like, hell no. Don't give him a pass on that. Think about it. All the things that they've brought to life on the screen, and they can't do better than what they did with Modok. It's like, okay. Well, when we tabulate the scores, we're going to take off points for that because it's something I immediately noticed, but I was just like, I guess this is the best they can do. It's not that great. The story of this one is also kind of a negative here. It's a setup movie, and some people complain about that. Like, hey, man, this is a setup movie. It's like, yes, it's a setup movie. This is the MCU. It's the MCU. Everything they do is to set up something else eventually. There are not many properties that you can watch that there's not a piece of that property or a piece of that film, that movie, that TV show that is designed to move things along. Like everybody's gonna have a place moving down the line. Even Black Panther 2, which had a lot to do. You have to cover the death of Chadwick. You have to introduce Riri Williams. You have to introduce Namor. You have to introduce young T'Challa so eventually we can get a younger, different version of T'Challa. There was a lot going on there, and there was a lot of that movie that was set up and designed just so other things can happen down the line. And if you look at any property, that's how it is. The only way a show or a movie is not designed to move things down the line is if it's introducing a character. So we look at Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was an origin story, and even as an origin story, it still, at the end, set up a few things down the lines. And it's like, yes, this is what they do. The Miss Marvel TV show, that was designed to introduce her character, cute little show, but at the very end, you get something to set things up down the line. And it's like, this is what they do. They do this all the time. So it does not bother me that the story was kind of meh, and it was really there just to set up Kang and the Kang dynasty and all that. Like, it's fine. It's fine. I accept it. Going into my last point though, my last little section of this video is talking about the cool little nugget you get if you played God of War Ragnarok. So I'm a big fan of the game. I just finished completing it like 100%. I got everything, collected everything. It was a fun ride. One of the best games that I've played in years. You get toward the end of the movie and you get the multiple Scotts. You know, and Scott keep popping out of Scott, and you get a billion Ant-Men, and they're all working together to get this one MacGuffin at the end of the film. And they totally explain the drop near spear. So my producer had saw the movie before I did, and me and him were talking about it, and we were texting because I was in the theater by myself. I was texting him while I was watching it, and we get to the point where Scott starts multiplying, and I text him, drop near spirit. Now, he's never played the game. And he was like, what is that? What are you talking about? And I was like, from God of War. It's in the game. It's in the movie. And he's like, what do you mean? I need you to explain. I was like, I'll hit you when I get out. So once I got out, I got a chance to sit with him and talk with him about, like the idea of Kratos having that spear from that ring that keeps replicating itself. So it's like he can throw one and then another one appear in his hand because it's all the different possibilities and stuff. I was like, man, this is so cool that I know exactly what they're doing here based on the game that I just finished playing. So I was very hype about that. I'm sure like not a lot of people caught it, but I did catch it. And I was like, this is a great little nugget to see in a different property. I was very pleased. Overall, I thought Ant-Man was good though, man. I don't feel like it was a bad movie as some people are calling it. I don't feel like Marvel is losing its touch or like flaming out or people getting superhero fatigue. Like, nah, man, it's Ant-Man. Ant-Man is not the strongest of the franchises. He's introducing Kang. That's all this movie is really for. I'm fine with it. I had fun. I watched it. I laughed. I enjoyed it. I actually thought Scott Lang would die or they would leave him in the quantum realm, which would have been cool to me. Like, it would have been cool to see a darker twist on things, but it's Marvel. They're going to save the day and everybody's going to make it, even though I thought Scott would die. I thought Janet would die. It's like, if this is the last Ant-Man solo film, let's raise the stakes and let's take some people out. But they didn't do that. And again, it's not a big deal to me. I thought it was fine. I thought it was cool. I'm positive on the movie. Check the description for the full breakdown as to why it scored how it scored. And that's all I have for you all. Enjoy yourself. Guard your heart. Go watch something good.